At the base of a great tree on Mount Tako, a young boy named Kataru tearfully asks a winged girl, Heim-chan, if she will be his bride when they grow up. They seal this innocent promise by linking their pinky fingers. Years later, in a quiet, traditional house near the mountain, the past seems to echo on the wind. Moving boxes sit at the entrance, hinting at a new resident. A lone feather drifts through an empty hallway. A now-adult Kataru works diligently at his desk. He types away, focused on his computer screen. He finishes up a project, sending an email confirmation. With a final press of a key, his task is complete. With his work done, Kataru sighs in relief. His attention is then drawn to a book on his desk titled, A Study of Mysterious Folklores. He picks up the book and begins to flip through it. He stares at the book, lost in thought. The sudden ringing of his phone startles him. He gets up to find the source of the noise. He wonders where the ringing is coming from. Spotting a forgotten lunch pack that expires tomorrow, he grabs it. While eating, he is startled by a rattling sound. The sound leads him to the family altar, where his phone is ringing. His grandparents find it unusual for him to call. They ask what's with him all of a sudden. He tells them unpacking wasn't hard. He says there is nothing else he wants. His grandparents ask what he wants and mention next week. Kataru is left puzzled by their question. It turns out his grandparents set him up on a trip to Mount Tako. His companions, Marisa and her boyfriend, are handed their tickets. Kataru, looking unenthused, is given his. The couple's public displays of affection only deepen his annoyance. Kataru tries to reassure them that it's hard to get lost on the cable car route, but the boyfriend remains overly protective of Marisa. As the couple boards, chattering excitedly, Kataru sighs. On the cable car, the scenery is amazing. The couple enjoys some Tengu-loved buns. They are surprised that Kataru bought a whole box. He explains that the route is paved and safe, with stores and restrooms. They arrive at the monkey park. He further explains the road is municipal, so cars can drive through. He explains that if they follow the temple road, it's a straight path to the summit. Marisa asks if he's been studying mountains. The couple is impressed with Kataru's detailed knowledge, jokingly calling him a mountain geek. He clarifies that he simply used to live in the area as a child. Marisa asks if he's come back. She notes his lack of enthusiasm about his recent move. Kataru clutches the old compass in his hand, saying that's not it. He admits he doesn't have many good memories of this place, as a sudden gust of wind blows past them. A strong gust of wind blasts past them. The couple is startled by the wind, but Kataru remains quiet. His gaze is drawn to a familiar, large tree in the distance. He recalls the story of how he was supposedly spirited away. The words "spirited away" by a Tengu echo in his mind. He separates from his companions, finding a bench to sit on, lost in contemplation. Marisa asks if he was spirited away by a Tengu. Kataru explains that he was told he mysteriously disappeared as a child. He doesn't remember the incident very well. Everything he knows is from what his relatives told him. But he says it feels like his body remembers. He feels an inexplicable urge telling him not to be there. He also thinks it's weird. He wonders if he really just forgot about getting lost here when he was in grade school. It's as if a lid has been placed on his memories of that time, and he cannot recall anything. He's sure that he's been here before. He recalls feelings of being scared, lonely, and crying by himself. Yet a question lingers: was he saved back then? He concludes it must be a bad memory, one better left forgotten. As he stands before a shrine, his eyes catch sight of a familiar figure. His companions approach, asking what has captured his attention. He is struck by a vivid memory of himself as a child calling out to a girl, Mi-chan. He remembers her gently holding his hand. The sound of his water bottle falling and splashing on the ground jolts him back to the present. He looks up, confused. He stares at the spilled water, wondering what just happened. Looking towards the shrine, his friend mentions that it is a Tengu again. His friend asks if he knows the shrine's god is a Tengu. Distracted, Kataru replies that he is pretty sure he does. A large black wing unfurls in his memory. His friends marvel at the pretty autumn leaves. He recalls someone teaching him the names of the trees and flowers. Marisa uses an app to identify a flower, finding it convenient, while her boyfriend remarks that it looks tasty. A memory surfaces: he was meeting someone here. He looks into the woods and sees her, the winged girl from his past, standing there. His friends call out to him, but he suddenly jumps away. He runs off into the woods. Startled, he feels an undeniable pull towards something deep within the forest. He finds himself on an off-course road. Yet he instinctively knows what lies ahead of this off-course road. He pushes through the brush, driven by a forgotten purpose. He catches his breath. A memory flashes. He's seen this spot before with someone else. A vine snags his jacket. He stumbles, thinking that was risky. He slips on a vine, crying out in surprise. His eyes widen as he looks up. His eyes meet the intense, glowing gaze of a large fox. A massive white fox looms over him. In a flash of memory, he sees the winged girl standing beside the creature. The vision becomes clearer, a girl with large black wings and her giant fox companion. She wears a tengu mask. He finds himself on the ground, looking up at the winged girl. She warns him sternly not to come here. She emphasizes that this is the third time. A jolt brings Kataru back to reality. His friends find him kneeling on the steps. They call his name in concern. They ask what happened, but he can only stammer, trying to process what he just saw. He wonders why the girl looked so familiar. He is certain that he has met her before. He questions if he really met that girl. His mind flashes to an image of a car sliding. Suddenly, he's back in his kitchen at night cooking. He makes miso ramen. His gaze falls upon the compass and an old diary. He clenches his fist as he reads an entry, distracted from the boiling pot. He returns to Mount Tako's Yakuo-in temple at night. He is surprised by the darkness. Despite the eerie quiet, he ventures into the woods. He sees a vision of his younger, lost self. He recalls being terrified as a child. But now his feet are advancing on their own. He is sure that he has forgotten something important. He feels compelled to meet someone here. He staggers, losing his footing on the dark path. Realizing he's about to fall, he lets out a cry of alarm. He lands with a thud, fearing the worst, but as he looks up, he finds himself at the base of the sacred tree, where a vision of his younger self is crying next to the white fox. As his younger self cries from his scrapes, the winged girl appears. She asks how long he's going to cry. She offers her hand. Admitting they aren't good at this sort of thing, she places a glowing hand over his injury to heal it. She asks if it hurts anymore, and the young Kataru stares in wonder. The girl asks if he can stand, offering to get medicine. The young boy is stunned into silence, blushing. Snapping back to the present, Kataru finds himself face to face with the girl. She rushes to his side, asking with concern if he is okay and if he's injured, while he rests on the fox's back. Relieved that he's awake, she wonders if he hit his head. She waves a hand in front of his face, calling his name Kataru. She recalls that he was hurt in this place before. The memories flood back, and he asks if she saved him back then. He recalls how he got lost on a field trip, and a big dog cushioned his fall. He looks at her hopefully and asks if she remembers him. He exclaims that he knew it, clasping his hands together. She recalls that he was crying alone, and she healed his scrapes and played with him, wondering how he could forget. She was positive at that time. She asks if he recalls the promise they made. But he looks at her, confused, asking about a promise. She freezes in shock. He doesn't remember the promise, and she asks what she did wrong. Flustered, she reminds him of her warning not to return a third time. He recalls her mentioning a third time and a warning. She asks if he knows the law of the village. She begins to explain that if you meet the same person thrice under the sacred tree. She says the two of them. She gazes at him intently. Before a shocked Kataru can react, she cuddles up to him. She declares that according to the law, the two of them must now get married. Kataru is left utterly stunned. Inside a traditional house, a lively banquet is in full swing. The Tengu are celebrating, raising their cups in a toast to Heim and Kataru's marriage. Kataru, looking overwhelmed, sits amidst the chaos as a Tengu asks if he's already drunk. The celebration grows more raucous. Some Tengu are moved to tears, happy that Heim-sama is finally getting married. As one flies in with more sake, an older Tengu approaches Kataru. Overwhelmed, Kataru can only apologize as another Tengu pours him more to drink. He calls him groom and asks how this all came to be. He was immediately surrounded by noisy Tengu, who examined him like a prize, commenting on him being a fine human man. He recalls the moment he arrived. He had fallen off a cliff. Just as they were speculating about his future with Heim-sama, she burst in, slamming the door open and demanding to know why they had started a banquet. Heim storms in, annoyed that no one consulted her about the celebration. She points out that the congratulations banner was just a repurposed birthday sign. Another Tengu tries to remind her of her duties, pointing out that Kataru is still an outsider. While one Tengu notes how lively things get when she's around, Heim dismisses their concerns. Unfazed, Heim cancels the banquet, much to the dismay of the Tengu who had rushed to prepare everything. Heim laments that Kataru still doesn't remember everything about their past. Kataru insists he can't get married so suddenly. However, their conversation is interrupted when Aiken, the fox, reveals that Heim was actually excited about the marriage. Blushing, Heim admits it's true. Taking advantage of the moment, other Tengu slide up to Kataru and begin to interrogate him. The Tengu bombard Kataru with personal questions about his life, from his relationship status to his job and finances. Heim tries to stop them, but Kataru answers meekly. Heim listens intently to his answers. He explains he was born in Hachioji, works as a system engineer, and doesn't have a lover. After confirming he's single, Kataru looks uncomfortable. He puts his foot down, stating firmly that he won't get married. The Tengu fall silent, shocked by his refusal. He acknowledges that they've saved him twice, and he's grateful. But he insists that their village rules have nothing to do with him. Kataru offers to apologize for unknowingly breaking any rules, but the elder Tengu dismisses his apology. Heim calls out to her grandmother, the elder, who declares that the village rules are absolute. With a fierce glare, she commands Heim to give birth to an heir for the family. Kataru is horrified and tries to intervene. Heim steps between Kataru and her grandmother, pleading for her to wait. She claims that Kataru is just having trouble remembering. The grandmother seems to consider it. She claims that if she talks to him, his memory will return. Heim then assures the others she understands the rules. She grabs Kataru, telling him they'll talk privately. As Heim leads Kataru down the hall, she quietly tells him to run away. She hands him his phone, explaining that she'll help him escape. Heim is serious about her escape plan. She explains that she'll help him escape through the sky. She reassures him that everyone else will be preoccupied with drinking all night. Kataru points out they need to get his shoes. She asks if he will get her out of there. She reminds him that she just asked if he wanted to get married. Heim admits she doesn't want to, but it's complicated. He points out that she seems to be forgetting things herself. Heim just gives him a knowing smile. A memory surfaces for Kataru, his younger self constantly following Heim around, calling her name. He admits he remembers that. Heim then asks if he has a family to protect. She explains that she does too, giving him a glimpse into her responsibilities. Heim explains that she got carried away because she's always been told the rules are absolute and that she must marry. Heim apologizes for dragging him into her situation. Heim finds his shoes, but he pats his pockets and says he doesn't have his wallet. He then realizes his compass is also gone. Frantically, Kataru searches for his compass. He explains its size to Heim. She wonders if someone else might have picked it up. As they stand outside, they are spotted by a group of young Tengu who whisper about the presence of a human. Heim mentions that a compass should fit in the palm of his hand, flapping her wings slightly. Acting on a strange impulse, Kataru reaches out and grabs one of her wings. It twitches in his grasp. A flustered Heim asks what he's doing, while Kataru, fascinated, remarks that her wings feel just like a bird's and that they really move. Heim is flustered by the contact. Kataru quickly retracts his hand and apologizes. He then asks why she isn't afraid of him. He points out that a normal person would be terrified to see a Tengu. Heim explains that as messengers of the mountain's god, they are yokai. The fact that he isn't frightened makes her happy. Kataru is surprised by her answer, but admits that he is in fact afraid. As Heim leads him on, he wonders what she's thinking. They speculate that Heim brought a human man to avoid matchmaking and criticize her for not wearing her mask. They believe she should be more aware of her role as leader and not admire the outside world so much. Heim sighs, remarking that they'll need to explain themselves later for talking behind her back, while Kataru grows increasingly frustrated. Kataru learns that Heim, not her grandmother, is the leader. Heim explains her lineage of leadership, adding that her parents and grandparents are gone. Since the village raised her, she considers them all family. She understands they mean well. but Kataru finds their thinking outdated. Heim complains about her traditional attire, declaring that shorter hakamas are cuter. She hates the Tengu mask, finding it unfashionable. Her directness makes Kataru's heart race. She then smacks him on the back, telling him it's better to talk face to face. Beaming, she tells him he really understands, before bringing up the smartphone she gave him. Kataru confirms it's a smartphone. Heim proudly shows off the smartphone, mentioning she also knows about computers and tablets. She reveals she collects them after mountain climbers lose them near a cliff. She's seen girls taking photos with them and dreams of doing the same. She wants to wear stylish clothes, eat good food, go shopping, and take pictures with friends and lovers. Heim thinks the outside world sounds cool. She recalls the gossip about her admiring the outside world. Kataru explains that the phones are useless without electricity or passwords. She laments that as the leader, she's expected to marry and have children. But all she really wanted was to dream a little more. Heim apologizes for the strange conversation. She dashes off, saying she thinks Aiken has his compass and she'll go look for it. Left alone, Kataru puts on his shoes. He pulls out the phone she gave him, lost in thought. He overhears the Tengu again, talking about how Heim is finally getting married. The Tengu continue their discussion, asserting that the village rules are absolute. For the good of the village, Heim must marry and have a child. She will have to endure it. Kataru listens, realizing that the Tengu have their own problems and pressures. He thinks about Heim's dreams. She advises him to take a deep breath if he gets scared. She reassures a nervous Kataru, promising she won't let him fall and telling him to hold on tight. She tells him not to look down. He asks if they've been discovered, but she says everyone is still at the banquet. Heim returns with the compass. Kataru realizes the fox found his compass. He thanks Heim. She tells him that once she returns it, they'll have to part ways. A wave of sadness hits Kataru. Heim places the compass in his hand, and as she does, it begins to glow. He looks at it, confused, asking what it is. Heim explains that she turned his important compass into a protection charm. She did it so he won't lose it again. She then sincerely wishes for his well-being and good health. Touched by her kindness, she gives him a warm, gentle smile. Kataru looks at her, speechless. With a determined smile, Heim says they should get going. Kataru, still worried, asks if she's sure about breaking the rules. He asks if she'll be punished. She admits she was always told something bad would happen, but nothing ever has, even though her grandmother insists on protecting the rules. Heim brushes off his concerns, saying it's her problem to deal with as a Tengu. She tells him not to worry. Heim asks him what he's talking about. Kataru stops Heim, looking serious. He admits he doesn't know her circumstances and that it's not his business. He feels the issue is simple. He suggests that maybe she doesn't need to follow the rules either. Kataru asks Heim why she doesn't just leave, since she doesn't want to be tied to the village's old rules. He tells her to do whatever she wants. He tells her she can fall in love with anyone and marry whomever she chooses. In fact, he adds she doesn't even have to get married at all. Heim is left flustered and speechless by his bold suggestions. Heim protests, saying that if she doesn't get married, it will be the end of her family and everyone in the village. But Kataru thinks that's fine. He encourages her to be selfish because it's her life after all. He clarifies that he's not telling her to cut all ties. He believes making choices based on what's good for her family or village isn't wrong. He says that after she tries out the things she wants to do, then she can decide. He tells her to first figure out what she really wants to do. Heim is left pondering his words, wondering what it is she really wants to do. He acknowledges she might get punished for breaking the rules, but until she figures that out, he suggests she try living in the outside world. Heim considers the idea of living outside. She quickly dismisses it as impossible. Kataru reassures her, saying it's not like she can't come back. He tells her that everyone in her village cares for her and she can always come back. He explains that having a place to return to is what gives you the freedom to do things you otherwise couldn't. His words strike a chord with Heim, leaving her blushing and thoughtful. The idea of living outside fills Heim with excitement. She asks Kataru if she could wear short skirts, cute Western clothes, and visit stylish stores. Kataru confirms that she can. As she continues, asking about walking through the city and riding trains, her face lights up with pure joy. Heim's excitement bubbles over as she flaps her wings, asking if she can wear dresses and sleeveless clothes. She eagerly lists all the things she wants to do: wear stylish outfits, nail polish, and even sneakers. With a determined look, she declares that she can do it. She adds that she wants to try seafood, stand in line at a ramen shop, and eat a mountain of meat. She says she wants to walk along the beach and take photos. Heim continues, saying she wants to do this with a friend or even a lover. As she speaks, Kataru gently takes her hand. She wants to live that life. Looking at him with hope in her eyes, Heim declares with newfound resolve that she'll do it. Beaming with joy, Heim declares that she's going to live in Kataru's house. A stunned Kataru can only ask, what? She's ecstatic about all the things she wants to try. Before he can protest further, Heim grabs him. She takes to the sky, carrying a terrified Kataru with her, announcing they need to inform the others while he screams for her to wait. Heim flies back to the banquet with Kataru, triumphantly announcing she's moving into his house to be his wife. The Tengu erupt in cheers. As they fly off again, Kataru dangles helplessly, wondering how things escalated so quickly. He overhears her happily sighing that it would be nice to live in his house as his wife, and he asks in disbelief if she heard what he actually said. She reminds him that he said she didn't need to follow the rules. Heim reminds Kataru that he told her she could fall in love with anyone. He tries to argue that's not what he meant, but she cheekily declares that since he said she didn't need to follow the rules, the conditions are now met. In her mind, this means they're engaged. This means she'll be his wife, and everything is fine because the rules are being followed. A stunned Kataru is left speechless. Heim excitedly asks if this is the place where they'll get married. As they arrive at Kataru's house, after a rough landing, she excitedly declares this is her new home. Kataru tells her not to decide things on her own. She notes sadly that he really doesn't remember everything. She looks at him and asks if he remembers their promise. Heim reminds him that she made a promise with him. Kataru, confused, asks what promise he made. She playfully tells him she won't reveal it until he remembers on his own, squeezing his arm with a mischievous grin. Heim leans in and whispers something to Kataru. He asks her to repeat it, but she just laughs it off. She says it's nothing. With a happy squeeze, she puts her arm around him and declares that they'll get along well as they walk towards his house. The morning begins with Kataru sleeping on his couch. He is jolted awake by his 7:30 a.m. alarm. He groggily reaches out to silence it. As he slowly sits up, a sudden memory makes him flinch. He turns and sees Heim fast asleep at his table. She is murmuring about red rice in her dreams. With a heavy sigh, the reality of the situation sinks in. Heim is truly in his house. He gets up and cautiously approaches her. He stares at her as she sleeps peacefully. While Heim dreams of food, Kataru finds himself captivated by her wings. He slowly reaches out. He gently touches one of the feathers. As he touches her wing, a memory of his childhood flashes through his mind. He calls out to her. She suddenly wakes up, startled and blushing to find him so close. Heim reacts with fury, throwing things at Kataru and scolding him for touching her wings while she slept. After her outburst, she quickly composes herself. She suggests they start over. She then bows formally, placing herself in his care. A bewildered Kataru stammers about his inexperience. Heim cheerfully accepts his care, promising to treat him well. Kataru, looking exhausted, slides a box of sweets towards her as a small offering. The gift is a box of Tengu's love manju. When she eagerly suggests greeting his family, he quickly shuts down the idea. Kataru tries to explain that he only suggested she try living in the outside world, not move into his house. Heim counters that she can't live alone since he's the only person she knows here. She explains that all the other Tengu she knows live on the mountain. He suggests she go back to MT, Tako, and reconsider. Heim begins to unpack, cheerfully announcing she's already told everyone she's getting married. She argues she can't go home empty-handed and must follow the rules. Exasperated, Kataru finally sighs in defeat, agreeing she can stay for just a bit. Heim beams happily at his answer. He tells her to stay for a few days then go home, but she defiantly declares she won't. She pulls out her favorite comb. Heim excitedly shows Kataru her large bundle of treasures. To Kataru's shock, a fox emerges from a small jar. She nonchalantly explains how convenient the magical jar is for storage. She offers him some tasty sweets made by her village. Kataru asks about the strange powers she's used. He wonders if it's a Tengu power. Heim confirms it's a type of magic, though she admits that as a Karasu Tengu, she isn't particularly skilled with it. He grabs her hand, amazed. Fascinated, Kataru asks if the power comes from her hand. He rubs it, marveling that such a normal-looking hand could produce light. Heim, blushing, points out his unusual fondness for touching her. Kataru gasps and frantically apologizes. Heim teasingly asks if he's that interested in her body. She announces it's time to clean before they waste the whole day talking. Brushing off the awkward moment, Heim ties up her hair and grabs a broom. Kataru questions Heim's cleaning abilities, but she insists she can clean. Recalling how she used to mop as a child, Kataru sighs. He decides to give her a more modern tool. He hands her a vacuum cleaner. Heim eyes it suspiciously, asking if it's a weapon. When he mentions electricity, she's amazed. Kataru explains how it works. Though she's nervous about using such a device, he encourages her to try. She starts vacuuming. Heim cautiously turns on the vacuum. She jumps back as it roars to life. Her initial fear quickly turns to excitement as she gets the hang of it. Seeing her occupied, Kataru decides to do the laundry. He tells her to start with the room in the back. As Heim approaches a room in the back, Kataru quickly tries to stop her. He says she doesn't need to clean that room. Ignoring him, she slides the door open. She gasps in amazement at the sight before her. The room is a massive library, packed with books from floor to ceiling. Heim is amazed, asking if they all belong to Kataru. He explains that they belong to his late grandfather. Heim, who has never seen so many books, excitedly explores the shelves. She wonders aloud if any of them are about yokai. She pulls out a book, her eyes widening as she reads the cover. Holding up a book titled Studies About Japanese Yokai, Heim excitedly concludes that Kataru must like yokai. He quickly denies it. She playfully suggests he doesn't need to hide it. She then concludes this explains his earlier fascination with her body. Flustered, Kataru insists again that the books belong to his grandfather. Heim's playful mood softens as she realizes Kataru's grandfather must have liked yokai. A hint of sadness enters her voice as she says she wishes she could have shown her wings and powers to him. She then adds that there's still a secret power she hasn't shown Kataru. Looking around, Heim observes that the room is dusty and hasn't been cleaned since Kataru moved in. As he heads off to do the laundry, he casually advises her to take off her socks in the dusty room. She asks if he moved in. He confirms he moved in recently. Heim kneels before the family altar, paying her respects to his late grandparents. Kataru watches her. He quietly thanks her. He, in turn, apologizes to her. She apologizes for her earlier assumption. Heim admits she assumed he had always lived in the house with his family. Kataru reveals that he actually grew up in an orphanage. He admits that he doesn't have a family. Hearing this, Heim clenches her fists, confessing that she doesn't have a family either, but she always had the village. He explains that his grandfather's friends took care of him and the house. He had no other relatives to take him in. He muses that a child can't live alone in this society. Heim looks at Kataru with deep empathy, gently telling him that he must have been lonely. Her words catch him completely off guard. He is stunned and at a loss for words. Kataru quickly denies he was ever lonely. Heim's knowing smile suggests she sees through him. Flustered by his reaction, she asks what's with the look on his face. Kataru points out her feet are now black with dust. Heim dashes off, insisting she'll take care of everything. He tries to stop her, saying he'll do the laundry. He says he'll clean the house every day. She insists on waking him up, cooking, and doing the laundry. Kataru is stunned. With a radiant smile, Heim declares that from now on she will take care of him. He hears her starting on the chores. He panics, shouting for her not to touch anything. Relieved that he stopped her from washing his underwear with her traditional washboard, Kataru grabs his laundry. He asks if she knows how to use a washing machine as he slides the washroom door open. Heim waits outside. Kataru slams the door shut, startling Heim. He apologizes from behind the door. He yells, asking why she is changing clothes. He explains he was thinking about washing his underwear too. Realizing he was the one who barged in, he shuts the door again. Heim asks where his laundry is. Heim emerges from the washroom in her underkimono, confused by Kataru's panicked reaction. He wonders why she got so angry when he touched her wings, but seems fine with this. Heim pouts, wishing he'd had this flustered reaction when he touched her wings. A note reveals that for Tengu, wings are the most intimate part to be touched. As Kataru sighs that she should just go home, the misunderstanding becomes clear. Kataru observes Heim, whose stomach growls loudly even though she's eating a manju. Blushing, she insists she's just hungry, while Kataru points out this is her fifth one. He checks the empty fridge and decides to go to the convenience store. Heim calls out to Kataru. She points towards something she's spotted. Heim excitedly declares that she wants to eat the cup noodles. Kataru is surprised by her request. He warns her it won't look as good as the picture. Heim explains she's seen people eating it in the mountains and always wanted to try it. She's amazed by the concept that all the ingredients are inside and you just add hot water. She looks at him pleadingly, asking if she can have some. Kataru agrees, saying it's fine. He comments that it's not something to get so excited about. He begins preparing the cup noodles, tearing open the packaging. Heim watches his every move with wide-eyed anticipation. Kataru asks if she wants to try making it herself. He decides he'll eat one too. After a moment of thought, she decides to have the same one he's having. He instructs her to peel the lid back to the middle, leaving her a bit confused. With her heart pounding, Heim peels back the lid. She is shocked by the dried contents inside. Kataru chuckles and confirms they are supposed to be that way. He then begins pouring hot water, explaining how much to add. He points out the fill line inside the cup. Heim panics, thinking it will overflow. Kataru reassures her that it will be fine. The noodles and ingredients expand in the hot water. Heim watches in amazement as the noodles swell up. He quickly instructs her to put the lid back on. They wait for the noodles to cook, with Heim impatiently counting down the seconds. As soon as the timer beeps, she excitedly opens the lid. She carefully peeks under the lid. She exclaims in amazement at the sight of the perfectly cooked ramen. Heim eagerly asks if she can eat it now. Heim is still amazed that it was made just by adding hot water. They sit down to eat, and Kataru urges her to dig in before the noodles get soggy. Kataru takes his first bite. Heim takes her first bite with an expression of pure delight. Heim eagerly slurps her noodles, her eyes widening with each bite. Kataru watches her, amused by her pure enjoyment. After swallowing, she exclaims that it's delicious. Heim is completely captivated by the new flavors, marveling at the tender noodles and mysterious meat. She declares that ramen is like a weird soba. Kataru smiles, explaining it's a type of Chinese-style noodle. She wonders how something so tasty can be made with just hot water. He watches fondly as she continues to eat. Seeing how much she's enjoying it, Kataru offers her another. He teases that he knows she likes to eat a lot. A flustered Heim denies it. After finishing her fourth cup, she thanks him for the delicious meal. Heim reflects happily. She muses that she's experienced so many new things she never thought she would. She's even eaten soba with a different taste. She recalls that he was unwilling to let her stay at first. She concludes that now she has begun living in his house. She says she's truly grateful to have met him. Heim looks at Kataru with a warm, genuine smile and thanks him. Her earnestness catches Kataru completely off guard. He tells her to stop getting so emotional over a cup of ramen, but she insists that without him, she never would have had this experience. He becomes flustered. She happily decides to brag to everyone back home about the incredible food. Heim happily muses about telling everyone back on the mountain. Heim is surprised to hear there's more. Kataru tells her there are many more things he can make for her. She is left stunned and excited. He tells her to think about what she wants to eat tomorrow. With a blissful smile, Heim thinks about her meal. She asks if she can keep the empty cup. Amused, Kataru relents, thinking to himself that she can stay for a while. Heim is overjoyed, vowing to clean the cup and treasure it. She then cheerfully announces she's laid out the futons, much to Kataru's dismay. In the kitchen, Heim excitedly watches as Kataru cooks, eager to help. Lifting the lid of the sizzling pan, she lets out a cry of delight at the sight of their breakfast. Kataru praises her for doing well on her first try, and she proudly presents her finished toast. Heim marvels at the meal, unfamiliar with the bread, red sauce, and what she calls sparkling eggs. She finds the Japanese name for fried eggs, medamiyaki, to be quite scary, though she admits it's good. Kataru is just relieved she likes it. Eager to begin, Heim asks if the coffee is ready. They both say their thanks before digging in. Taking her first bite, Heim exclaims how delicious it is. She's amazed by the springy texture of the bread and the sweetness of the sauce, admitting she initially thought it was a large rice cracker. As she enjoys the tender eggs, Kataru quietly eats his own toast, thankful there was some bread left. Heim is already excited about lunch, and Kataru agrees to get her whatever she wants. As they discuss their plans for the day, Heim thinks about what to get. Kataru suddenly remembers he needs to hang the futons out to dry and finish cleaning the house. Heim excitedly brings up sleeping in the same room again, just as she did the day before, much to Kataru's flustered annoyance. Later, Kataru is shocked to find Heim has laid out 2 futons side by side. She cheerfully asks which side he wants, saying she's fine with either. He insists they won't be sleeping together and tries to move one of the futons. Heim protests, grabbing his arm with surprising strength and arguing that she can't sleep on a futon alone. Undeterred, Kataru drops the bedding in a separate room, declaring it her temporary bedroom. Heim complains that the room is too far from his. Kataru retorts that living together is already strange enough. Heim innocently argues that since they're married, it's only natural for them to sleep under the same roof. Flustered, Kataru ignores her question and firmly points to the separate room, reiterating that it's her bedroom for now. Still at the breakfast table, Heim stares at Kataru. She then sweetly asks for a bite of his toast with white sauce. He reluctantly agrees, telling her to bite the other side. Instead of taking a small piece, she snatches the entire slice from his hand and takes a huge bite. Kataru dryly comments on the size of her mouth as Heim declares the mayonnaise delicious and sour. As a thank you, she offers him a bite of her toast. Kataru refuses, muttering about her lack of danger sense, but she grabs his shirt and insists he try it. Suddenly, the doorbell rings. A mailman stands at the door asking if this is Tsukisaka-san's house. The mailman has a registered letter for Tsukisaka Kataru. The mailman asks if he's a new resident. Kataru confirms he moved in recently, and the mailman expresses his relief. The mailman explains that the house has been empty for a long time, and Kataru is left wondering who in the area still remembers his family. The mailman explains that his boss remembered the Tsukisaka family used to live here. Surprised, Kataru hears a faint welcome back. As he watches the mailman drive away, Kataru reflects on the fact that people still remember his family's presence here. As Kataru closes the door, Heim peeks out from the other room. He suddenly has a terrifying realization about the danger of other people discovering her. As he panics, Heim asks who the letter was from, innocently pointing out her own conspicuous features. In a fit of fear, Kataru slams the door shut. Kataru is frozen with fear, realizing he hadn't considered the consequences of Heim being seen. Heim asks what happened, concerned. He imagines a horrifying scenario, news reports and social media posts about a real-life Tengu, leading to her capture and experimentation. The thought of other Tengu from MT, Takao suffering the same fate makes him turn pale. Heim notices his distress, pointing out how pale he looks. Heim accuses him of hiding something. Kataru tries to deflect, suggesting the mailman probably just thought she was a cosplayer. Unconvinced, Heim grabs him, demanding to know what he's hiding. Heim looks out the window, confused and wondering if the visitors have left. He pushes her head away gently, telling her there's nothing. Heim questions his action, and Kataru tells her she needs to be more careful. He resolves to make sure no one discovers her. He quickly tells Heim to go clean her room, much to her surprise. He explains that people can't see her from the veranda. But as he says this, he spots an old woman sitting right there. The old woman stares at him for a moment. Kataru throws open the door, startling an old woman who asks if Tsukisaka-san is there. He confirms it's him. Her face lights up, and she exclaims that he's really come back. Kataru clarifies that he's the grandson, as the woman tries to recall the son's name. Apologizing for her poor eyesight, she admits she mistook him for his father, remarking on how he's grown. The woman chuckles, saying her great-grandchildren tease her about her blurry vision. Kataru is relieved she likely didn't see Heim. The woman confirms she saw the mailman leaving and asked him about the new resident. He explains he just met the mailman. She pats Kataru's arm, marveling at how big he's gotten. The woman fondly recalls Kataru's childhood, remembering how he used to love eating watermelons. Kataru quietly acknowledges the memory of his grandma. She also brings up how they all used to pound mochi during New Year's and how he would eat more than her own grandsons. The woman then mentions how delicious his grandma's ohagi were. She laughs, remembering that his grandma would send him over with ohagi for her, but he'd end up eating them himself. Kataru smiles sheepishly, apologizing for his childhood antics. The woman gently takes his hand, her expression softening as she remarks again on how much he has grown. The woman fondly reminisces about his grandmother's ohagi. A memory of a young Kataru happily eating them flashes by. Lost in thought, Kataru agrees quietly, saying he loved them too. After seeing the old woman off, Kataru returns inside. He picks up a compass from his desk. He puts the compass in his pocket. He then opens the door to Heim's room. He's taken aback by what he finds. Heim is sitting quietly, looking downcast. She softly says that she likes ohagi too. Kataru hesitantly agrees that they are tasty. Then an idea strikes her, and she brightly suggests making some for him. Seeing his reaction, Heim immediately apologizes, but he assures her that's not it. Kataru gently pats Heim's head. He then tells her he'll bring a heater to her room. The gesture seems to comfort her. As he leaves, Heim begins looking through the delivery flyers, wondering where she put a specific one. The day is filled with a constant stream of visitors, neighbors with vegetables, and someone with neighborhood association notices. Heim, meanwhile, is delighted by the fresh vegetables, oblivious to his growing stress. Kataru is completely overwhelmed, muttering that this isn't the quiet rural life he envisioned. He worries about what will happen at this rate. Heim happily examines the large radish, noting it would be good raw or boiled. Kataru, however, imagines the locals discovering her and spreading the word, leading to unwanted attention. He realizes that if they stay here, she will definitely have a hard time. As his stomach growls with anxiety, Heim misinterprets it as hunger and cheerfully asks how he'd like the radish prepared. Heim pouts, thinking it happened again. Seeing her face, Kataru laughs and apologizes, suggesting they get something to eat. He decides to order from Upper Eats. He is dismayed to find no delivery restaurants available and shows her the service not available message on the screen. Heim is amazed by the plank that uses electricity. Frustrated that the delivery app is useless, Kataru mutters in defeat. He resigns himself to going to a convenience store. But Heim excitedly presents a stack of old paper menus she found, asking if they can order from one of them. Relieved, Kataru agrees, and they look through the options from a local soba and udon shop. Looking at the old menu brings a wave of nostalgia over Kataru. He explains to Heim that this is how they used to order food, and they'll need to return the plates later. Heim excitedly points to the curry udon, declaring that she wants to try it. He asks if she's okay with udon since she's had it before. Though he thinks her idea of curry is a bit different, he agrees. While waiting, Kataru looks up how to return delivery plates. Soon, the delivery from Masukawa restaurant arrives. The delivery man announces the total is 1,400 yen. Kataru confirms they only take cash and pulls out his wallet. He pays the man, who provides the change. The delivery man asks if Kataru used to live here, explaining that he had some notes and his father had told him to ask. He mentions that his father remembered a boy who loved mochi lived here. The man thanks him and leaves. Kataru is left stunned at the door. As they sit down to eat, the steam rises from the bowls. Heim delightedly comments on the smell of curry. Kataru clarifies it's mostly the broth. Heim eagerly asks what he got. He peels the lid off his own bowl. It's chikara udon, the same dish from the menu she points to. Heim peers into his bowl and notes that his dish has 3 pieces of mochi, which is different from the picture on the menu. Kataru looks at his bowl, momentarily wondering if it was a mistake. Overwhelmed, he covers his face, realizing the extra mochi was a thoughtful gesture from the owner. Heim asks if he's all right. Kataru, composing himself, says he is and that they should eat. As they begin their meal, Heim takes a deep sniff of her steaming curry udon. Her face lights up with pleasure. They both start slurping their noodles, and Heim declares that the curry is delicious. As Heim watches, Kataru eats his meal. He takes a bite, and the familiar taste floods his senses. A gentle smile spreads across Kataru's face. He knows this taste very well. He fondly remembers that he used to eat this a lot. A flashback shows him as a happy child, enjoying a meal with the kind restaurant owner. Taking another bite of the machi, the warmth of the memory fills him. Kataru takes a bite of the stretchy machi, a taste of his childhood. Heim watches him with a soft, understanding smile. He continues to eat, savoring the moment as he reconnects with a piece of his past. After they finish eating, Heim sighs contentedly, remarking on how full she is. Kataru, however, claims he can still eat more. Delighted, Heim starts humming and looking through the menus again, wondering what to eat next. Kataru, looking at his phone, asks if she can still order more food, and she eagerly confirms. Heim excitedly declares that from now on, they're going to eat lots of tasty things together. Kataru looks at her, exasperated, and mutters that she really only thinks about food. A flustered Heim denies it, explaining that she just saw a lot of delicious-looking things on the menus. Heim eagerly lists all the new foods she wants to try, like sushi, pizza, and fried meat. As she daydreams about their future meals, Kataru quietly reflects on her words, from now on. Heim calls out his name from the doorway, bringing him back to the present. Heim finds Kataru asleep on the couch again and gently tells him it's morning. She playfully pokes his cheek, wishing him a good morning. Startled, Kataru jumps up as Heim scolds him for not sleeping on the futon. Heim proudly presents the breakfast she prepared, 3 enormous onigiri. Kataru eyes them skeptically, calling them mere rice clumps, which offends Heim. She insists they are proper onigiri with fillings, boasting about her skill. She then details the fillings: boiled egg, grilled meat, and rice mixed with yesterday's Aurora sauce. While eating, Kataru compliments the taste of the sauce-flavored onigiri. He asks how she knew how to use a rice cooker. Heim looks confused, asking what a rice cooker is. She explains she used his pots, which are different from what she's used to, giving Kataru a bad feeling. He stands up to reveal a completely messy kitchen. Heim explains she was trying to make miso soup, but couldn't find any miso. Heim explains her attempt to make soup by simply boiling water, salt, and soy sauce. Kataru, looking at the ruined pot, asks how she'll clean the mess. He then questions why she tried to cook in the first place. Heim sadly confesses that she feels she hasn't been acting like a proper wife and wanted to learn. She felt she needed to at least cook him breakfast to fulfill her role. Kataru tells her that's not necessary, as there are no laws dictating such things. Heim insists that a wife should be able to cook on her own. He explains that modern times have made things much more convenient. He tosses some instant miso soup packets to a confused Heim. He instructs her to simply empty the contents into a bowl. Heim is amazed as she pours hot water into the bowl. She compares the result to instant ramen, and Kataru confirms it's a simple 2-step process. Heim sniffs the soup, surprised that it smells just like authentic miso soup. Kataru explains that with convenient options like this, she can relax in the mornings. Kataru reassures Heim that he's happy she got up early to prepare breakfast for him. Heim sips her instant soup, delighted by the taste. Kataru tries one of the onigiri he was skeptical about earlier. He admits that the ham one is actually quite good. Heim blushes, happy that he finds it delicious. Before leaving to buy some things, Kataru sternly instructs Heim to stay inside. Heim agrees, though she seems annoyed by his repeated warnings. She cheerfully sees him off, happy to be acting like a wife, but Kataru leaves feeling worried. He walks down the street on his errand. He gets a text from a friend asking to go for drinks. He declines, explaining that someone is waiting for him at home. Looking at the bags full of groceries, he realizes he might have bought too much. He's buying food and daily necessities for them both. He walks on, contemplating that he's doing all this even though he has no intention of marrying her. He pauses, questioning his own actions. He wonders how long this situation can last. He was the one who told her she was free to do as she pleased. He arrives home and realizes with grim determination that it's time for them to have a serious talk. As he approaches his house, he's horrified to see Heim sitting on the veranda talking with an old woman. Kataru rushes up to the veranda, shocked to see Heim with the neighbor. The old woman cheerfully welcomes him back. He demands to know what she is doing there. He immediately scolds Heim for going outside, but she innocently explains that the woman brought them dango. The woman adds that she remembered he likes red bean paste dango, which leaves Kataru speechless. Still flustered, he grabs Heim to talk to her in private. An old man observes Kataru and Heim, remarking that he now understands why Kataru came back. He laments that Kataru is already taken, as he'd hoped to set him up with his own granddaughter. Heim cheerfully adds that she's still learning to be a proper wife, much to Kataru's dismay. He tries to interrupt, asking the man if he isn't curious about her wings. The old man asks about the wings. Kataru quickly dismisses them as a youth fashion trend. The man compares it to his granddaughter's blue hair, accepting the explanation. Heim blurts out that her wings are real, but Kataru quickly covers by saying she's just very dedicated to her cosplay. Relieved that his secret is safe, Kataru thinks about how realistic costume accessories have become. Suddenly, a delivery man who overheard them asks if her wings are real, shocking Kataru. The man clarifies, asking if they move. As he pulls out his phone, Kataru panics. He quickly slams the door shut, pulling Heim inside with him. Heim apologizes, claiming they were in the middle of a photo shoot for work. The delivery man asks what kind of work it was, and Heim, trying to cover, says it was for their webpage. Kataru asks him to please refrain from taking pictures and to not tell anyone about what he saw. The man agrees to keep it quiet. Back inside, Kataru scolds Heim for going outside. She explains that the old woman kept calling his name over and over. He reminds her that she brought them dango. Heim says she's used to people looking at her, as she often meets humans on MT, Taco. Heim realizes this time it's different. Kataru tries to make her understand that this place is different from the familiar mountains. Kataru spells out his fears, explaining that she still doesn't understand human society. He warns her about the danger if people took her picture and uploaded it online. He admits even he doesn't know what would happen to her after that. Heim, finally understanding, apologizes and says she's sorry. She suggests she should go back to the mountain, regretting that she ever left. Heim grabs his arm, pleading that she doesn't want to go back. She insists that she wants to stay with him. Kataru, frustrated, clenches his fist. He tells her she makes a mess of his house. He says she won't listen to anything he says, and that he doesn't even know what will happen to his livelihood. Kataru tells her harshly that she's a burden. He asks her to please go back to the mountain. Stunned and heartbroken by his words, Heim can only whisper an apology. The food and water he left for her are untouched. He worries that she hasn't eaten since noon and wonders if she's okay. He wonders if she's lost consciousness. He worries that maybe she's started avoiding people entirely because of what he said. As Kataru turns away, thinking her departure is for the best, his door slams open and Heim stands there, startling him. She tells him she'll leave the next day. Looking at him with tear-filled eyes, she says she has one and only request. She asks if she can sleep with him. That night, Kataru lies awake, unable to sleep. He looks over at Heim, who is sleeping in a separate futon beside his. Kataru breaks the silence, admitting he's the one who created the distance between them, and asks if she's truly okay with this arrangement. Heim quietly replies that just being in the same room as him is enough for her. The only sound in the room is the ticking of the clock. Suddenly, Heim jumps out of her futon and into his, startling Kataru. As she settles under the covers, he quietly asks if she's already asleep. She turns to face him, their faces now inches apart. Kataru apologizes for his selfish request. Heim asks if she's been a burden all this time. He tells her he's sorry for not noticing how she felt. Heim admits she got carried away. She says she only ever thinks about herself. She says this even though he has his own life to live. Heim tells him that even if he doesn't feel the same way as her. With a sad smile, she confesses how much she truly enjoyed their time together. She says that even though it was only for a short moment, she will never ever forget the days she spent with him. She explains that since she came down from the mountains, everything seemed shiny and glittering, but it wasn't just because the outside world was new to her. It was because Kataru was always there with her. She thanks him for bringing her to see the outside world. She asks him to take care of himself by eating well and sleeping on the futon. After listening to her, Kataru simply wishes her a good night. Heim turns her back to him. After a moment of hesitation, Kataru does the same. Kataru reflects on the simple joys Heim brought into his life, being woken up in the morning, sharing meals, and being wished good night. He sits up, looking at his empty kitchen. He realizes he'd forgotten what it was like to experience any of that. A flood of memories comes back to him, all the times Heim smiled and laughed. He remembers her happily calling his name. He remembers her bright smile from when he first met her on the mountain. A stark contrast to her quiet form sleeping beside him now. The next morning, Heim wakes up. She calls out his name, noticing his futon is already put away. She hears the sound of chopping. Following a pleasant aroma, she walks towards the kitchen. Heim finds Kataru in the kitchen, preparing breakfast. He greets her, surprised to see her awake. He tells her the food is almost ready and sends her to wash up. Stunned, Heim asks if he can cook. Kataru explains that he learned to cook out of necessity from living alone for so long. It wasn't that he disliked it, he just didn't see the point in cooking for only himself. He sets a large, elaborate breakfast on the table. He admits he may have made too much. Heim takes a sip of the soup, and her eyes widen with delight. As Kataru eats, she happily takes a bite of an onigiri. She savors the food he prepared for her. Kataru gently notes that she must have been very hungry since she hadn't eaten since yesterday. Heim apologizes for shouting at him the night before. Kataru admits he said horrible things, but Heim insists it was her fault. She explains she'd been thinking about it all night. Kataru calls himself irresponsible, questioning whether her staying with him is truly beneficial or just putting her in danger. Heim quickly disagrees, pointing out that he always puts others before himself. She believes she's the one at fault for acting selfishly and becoming a burden. Kataru tells Heim there's one more thing he needs to apologize for. He admits that what he said before was a lie. He confesses that he doesn't think she's a burden at all. In fact, he thinks being with her isn't such a bad thing. He corrects himself, admitting that it's actually been really fun. He explains that he's never lived with anyone before, but it's been unexpectedly fun. Because of this, he tells her she can stay if she wants to. Heim starts to protest, but he stops her. Kataru suggests they put aside the talk of marriage and rules for now. He tells her he wants her to have the freedom to do what she wants, and he'll help her find a way. He says he has been thinking of ways for her to live that life without hurting her or the villagers. He even offers to make her meals every day if she's okay with that. Kataru promises to make sure she no longer has to hide and can walk outside freely. Heim excitedly asks if this means she can wear cute Western clothes and short skirts and go to stylish stores. He explains that this is why he is making his offer. He looks at her seriously and calls her by her name, Heim. Kataru looks at her earnestly and says she can stay as long as she'd like. Heim declares she will take responsibility. He acknowledges that his words might not seem reliable after what he said before. He reiterates his offer for her to stay if she truly wants to continue living like this. He assures her he won't ask for the impossible though. Kataru warns her that his house is shabby, hot in the summer, cold in the winter, and gets insects much like the mountains. As he speaks, tears begin to stream down Heim's face. Kataru is completely caught off guard by her sudden tears, stammering in confusion. Kataru panics, looking for tissues and asking if she's sure. Through her tears, Heim asks if she really won't be a burden if she stays. He apologizes profusely, saying he didn't mean to make her cry and reminding her that he lied about her being a burden. Heim confesses that she thought she was always causing him trouble. She admits to being selfish and spoiled. She asks again if she can really stay. Crying, she admits that she has always loved his house and found it fun to live there. She looks at him and declares that she wants to live together with him. Kataru hands her a box of tissues and gently tells her she can stay as long as she wants. As she dries her tears, he tells her she has to promise to listen to him from now on. He tells her he will figure things out. Heim quietly agrees. She asks for more onigiri. While still crying, Heim continues to eat, exclaiming how good the food is. Kataru dryly comments on her love for eating. He tells her that there are lots of guys nicer than him out there. He says that if she finds a guy she likes, she can leave this house anytime. Heim is shocked that he's still saying that. Heim gets annoyed, reminding him that he was the one who said it first. Kataru feigns innocence, asking what he could have possibly said. She pouts that she won't tell him, but a sly smile crosses her face. Heim smiles sweetly and says she'll be waiting until he says it to her again. Kataru is left flustered. He wonders what she wants him to say as she happily continues eating the breakfast they're sharing. In a quiet yard, a leaf drifts down from a tree, landing gently on a sleeping white fox. The creature, Ikichi, stirs from its slumber with a wide yawn. Startled to find the fox outside, Kataru wonders what it's doing here. As Ikichi wakes and stares at him, Kataru figures Heim must have let it out to enjoy the nice weather. He sympathizes that it must be depressing for the creature to always be inside a jar. Kataru apologizes for the noise from his raking and decides to sweep elsewhere. Suddenly, he's struck from behind. He turns to see Akechi has transformed into a giant fox, proudly presenting a mousetrap as a meal. As Heim scolds the Yauko for its dangerous prank, Kataru, nursing his head, tells her not to be so mad. In his room, Kataru carefully selects an outfit. After some thought, he decides on a collared shirt. He changes into it with a determined look. After changing, he grabs his jacket and prepares to leave. As he heads for the door, Heim appears from the other room and asks where he's going. Kataru tells a surprised Heim that he's going to her home. He reminds her that she said he could visit any time. He explains that since they snuck out without a word, he feels he should at least visit her family and explain what happened. Kataru adds that her family is probably worried. Flustered, Heim crushes the flyer in her hand. Heim panics, imagining Kataru formally asking for her hand in marriage, but he insists that's not his intention. She sternly reminds him that her father is dead, and he has no right to call him father-in-law. Kataru gently calms her. He explains it's not about marriage, he just wants to let them know he'll be taking care of her for the time being. He simply feels it would be rude not to greet them at all. Heim looks touched, realizing he's doing this because her village entrusted her to him. Kataru admits he knows it's too late to greet them on good terms, and that he might even get beaten up. He reassures her that he'll tell them everything necessary so she can live freely in the outside world. Hearing this, Heim starts to giggle, leaving Kataru confused. Heim clings to a flustered Kataru, telling him he's always so caring. She says he's caring towards both her and everyone in the village. She gives him a radiant smile and thanks him. She then playfully suggests that his concern is why he dressed so nicely, a notion he quickly denies. With a running start, Heim takes off into the night sky, carrying Kataru. After they land, Kataru is shivering from the early December cold, and Heim teases him for not being strong despite his thick jacket. She then curiously starts kneading his puffy jacket, startling him. Confused by her reaction, Kataru can only watch as Heim continues to cling to him. She burrows into his jacket, exclaiming how soft it is, like a freshly dried futon. As she snuggles in, commenting on how warm it is, Kataru tells her to stop. He grabs her hand. Kataru points out how cold her hand is. Heim insists she's fine, claiming her kimono insulates heat well. Her argument is immediately undermined by a sudden sneeze. Laughing it off, she excitedly says everyone will be surprised. As they walk through the woods hand in hand, Kataru looks determined. However, upon their arrival, they are met with the sight of a lively banquet already in full swing. While the Tengu celebrate, Kataru stands in disbelief as Heim happily digs into a large bowl of food. Kataru's heart sinks as he wonders how things turned out this way. A villager claps him on the shoulder, explaining they thought the two had run away since they didn't approve of the marriage, and congratulates them. Another villager expresses relief that Heim found a nice, well-mannered man. As Kataru tries to correct the misunderstanding, an elder calmly states that marriage is something that needs time. Heim cheerfully announces to everyone that she'll be living with Kataru for a while, and that he came to greet them. Put on the spot, Kataru awkwardly clears his throat. He bows and apologizes for their sudden departure the other day. He explains that he just wants to help Heim get used to the outside world. Heim confirms that she wishes to live in his house for as long as she wants. Kataru continues, acknowledging that they must feel uneasy entrusting their precious eldest daughter to a human. He promises to do his utmost to ensure no harm comes to Heim or the village. Suddenly, a rhythmic thudding sound begins, and Kataru wonders what the noise is. A voice from outside booms, declaring it outrageous to entrust the heir of the Tengus of MT, Takao, to a human. The voice continues, decrying how immoral it is for an unmarried man and woman to live together. Confused, Kataru suggests they go out on the count of 3. Just as Kataru counts, the door bursts open with a loud bang. A large, blonde-haired Tengu storms in, dramatically demanding that the marriage be held off. While a villager cheers for their boss, Kataru can only stare, wondering what is happening now. A Tengu with long, blonde hair dramatically introduces himself as Atagyama Ikirauta from the Atagyama Tarobu clan, one of the 48 Tengu kins. Kataru and Heim are left dumbfounded by his sudden appearance. Seeing their confusion, Ikirauta declares that since they're only human, he will enlighten them. Heim recognizes the name, explaining that Tarobu Oji-sama is the supreme leader of the Tengus. Kataru recalls that Tarobu is said to be the strongest of the 8 great Tengu. Impressed by his knowledge, Heim clarifies that Ikirauta is, unfortunately, one of Tarobu's kin. She confronts Ikirauta, demanding to know why he's there, but he only retorts about her vulgar mouth. Ikirauta explains he came to check on rumors about a Tengu woman choosing a human male over a great Tengu like himself. Heim jolts at his words. Kataru is completely shocked. Then he drops a bombshell, declaring that the woman in question is his fiancée, though his companion quickly interjects that she is his former fiancée. The news of Heim having a fiancée, even a former one, stuns Kataru. Heim looks uncomfortable. Ikirauta taunts him, asking if he was unaware. He tries to process the information, reasoning that it's not entirely surprising for an eldest daughter. Kataru asks if the engagement was cancelled. Heim laments that the engagement was never her decision, but was forced on her by the elders. Kataru realizes this is the arranged marriage she mentioned and dismisses it. However, Ikirauta angrily declares that he absolutely refuses to marry a woman like her. Ikirauta asks Heim if she still believes in the village rule. The rule states that those who meet under the sacred tree 3 times must marry. Kataru steps in, pointing out that the rule clearly isn't enforced, which surprises Heim. Heim protests that her grandmother told her the rule was absolute. Ikirauta reminds her they played together under that tree as kids, and yet here they are. Heim argues they were just children. Kataru presses her, asking if there's a written exception for children. Kataru dismisses the rule as a mere superstition, accusing the villagers of interpreting it for their own convenience. He calls the whole thing ridiculous. He then turns to Heim, suggesting she's fed up with the village's traditions. He accuses her of using the rule as a shield to escape with him, a human. Ikirauta joins in, questioning if Heim's true intention was to use Kataru. As Kataru tries to defend her, Heim quietly insists that such a thing never crossed her mind. Seeing her genuine distress, Kataru realizes he was wrong. Tears stream down Heim's face as she tells Kataru he was wrong. She looks at him, her eyes filled with sorrow, and explains that she never intended to escape. Heim reveals that it was her grandmother who let her escape. She promised to receive any punishment in Heim's stead. Kataru is stunned to learn that it was actually her grandmother who told Heim to live outside the village. Kataru explains to Ikirauta that Heim treasures the Tengus of her village a lot. He also treasures his own family deeply. That's why he doesn't believe Heim would act so selfishly. He then challenges Ikirauta, asking why he's so invested in this supposed rule when he himself admitted it's not enforced and there's no punishment. As Heim tries to stop the argument, Kataru remains resolute. He grips the compass in his pocket and turns to face the Tengu elders. He states that a belief holds meaning for the person who believes in it, even if it's just a superstition. He declares that everyone has the freedom to believe in something, and others shouldn't try to take that away. Ikirauta scoffs, asking Kataru if he realizes he's being used. Heim cries out that she would never lie. Undeterred, Kataru says he's fine with being used. If it means granting Heim's wish to live in the outside world, he'll do it. Kataru explains that his feelings have always been this way. That's why he came to talk to them. He bows deeply before the Tengu elders, formally asking for their permission to let Heim live in the outside world. He promises to do his utmost to ensure no harm comes to her or the village. With deep conviction, Kataru vows to never make Heim cry again. The Tengu, including Ikirauta, are left speechless. Overwhelmed, Heim jumps into Kataru's arms. She tearfully insists she never once thought of using him. Heim clings to Kataru, sobbing that she truly believed in the rule and never lied. Squeezing his shirt, she confesses that even if the rule didn't exist, she would still want to be with him. As long as she can be with him, Heim cries that she's okay with anything. Touched, Kataru tells her he understands. Kataru gently holds her. Annoyed by the display, Ikirauta tells her not to wipe her snot on him. Ikirauta announces they're leaving. He calls them fools and complains that this backwater mountain is nothing like the sparkly city of Tokyo. His companions complain about the long trip, so he relents and suggests a quick walk around the station area. The companions cheer and fly off to buy sweets. Kataru wonders what Ikirauta's deal is. A villager whispers that Ikirauta was supposed to marry Heim before Kataru appeared. Heim apologizes to Kataru, then thanks him for protecting her and the village. She launches into a rant about how much she's always hated the foul-mouthed, stupid Ikirauta. She clarifies that she was telling the truth about her feelings, not just using him to escape. She admits that's why she hates the idea of marrying Ikirauta, because she truly loves Kataru. Kataru gently pats her head. She wipes away her tears as he turns to leave. As Kataru turns to leave, he's surprised to see all the villagers have come to see him off. They have all removed their masks. Basama holds out a gift, pleading with him. The Tengu villagers all bow, asking Kataru to take care of Heim. Both he and Heim are stunned by the show of support. The villagers cheer them on. As Kataru finally departs, the villagers bid him farewell. Heim's friends give her a parting gift and ask for a hug. They ask him to take care and visit again. As Kataru walks away under the night sky, he pulls the compass from his pocket. He hears Heim call his name and turns to see her running towards him, laughing, taking his hand in hers. With a beaming smile, Heim takes his hand and says, "Let's go home." Kataru looks at her surprised. As they walk away together, Kataru remarks that things went well, noting that everyone gave their consent. Heim agrees, thanking him and expressing her surprise that even Basama approved. Kataru, however, seems lost in thought. Heim asks what's on his mind. Kataru questions Heim about the rule, stating he only remembers meeting her twice. He recalls getting lost and later slipping by the tree. Heim confirms this. He has a sudden realization, asking if the third time is what she always wanted him to remember. Heim realizes he's forgotten and says he could have just told her. A young Heim finds him. A flashback shows a young, crying Kataru, lost after his grandmother's passing. Noticing Heim's somber expression, Kataru asks what's wrong. She approaches him and he chides himself for forgetting. She pats his head gently. He looks confused. Heim tells Kataru it's better if he doesn't remember. She thinks he'd be happier that way. She tells him it's fine and he doesn't have to recall it anymore. She promises not to ask him again. She apologizes for being selfish and pestering him about it, but he looks at her with concern. Though Heim insists it's okay, Kataru grabs her hand, refusing to give up. He promises he will try to remember. Seeing his resolve, she realizes he truly wanted to remember for her. He clasps their hands together, vowing to say it again once he remembers. Kataru declares that he will definitely remember it. Heim asks him to wait a bit longer. She pulls him into a hug, catching him off guard. Overjoyed, she thanks him. As Ikarauta's group flies away, his companion asks if he's sure about this. Another complains about the humiliation and how the Takao guys messed with them. He wants revenge on the human. Ikarauta tells them to leave the human be. He muses that it would have been easy to make fun of him if he were just blinded by love for Heim. Ikirauta explains that people who don't wish for anything are the most troublesome. His companion asks what he means. He then urges them to hurry so they don't miss the shops. Back on the ground, Kataru and Heim share a tender moment as the chapter ends. At 6:38 on a December morning, Kataru is jolted awake by a loud thudding sound. He finds Heim energetically scrubbing the wooden floors, letting out a spirited cry as she works. Shivering from the cold morning air, Kataru asks Heim what she's doing up so early. A fox is seen outside, taking a stroll in the very cold December weather of Hachioji. Heim cheerfully explains that since she woke up early, she decided to do some cleaning, adding that it's important to ventilate the house in winter. Kataru, now dressed, can only thank her for her diligence. Kataru tells Heim she doesn't need to worry, boasting that he hasn't caught a cold in years. But just as he says it, he lets out a huge sneeze. Heim sneezes herself a moment later. She giggles, teasingly telling a stunned Kataru that she must have caught his sneeze. After they finish the dishes, Kataru is interrupted by a loud shout from the doorway announcing a delivery. Heim is startled, wondering who it could be. She turns to see Kataru smirking and asks why he suddenly shouted. Kataru dramatically presents two cleaning robots. Heim stares at them, confused, asking if they are weapons. Heim is amazed when she realizes the little machines will clean for them. A bit embarrassed by his own flair, Kataru tells her to watch and activates them with his phone. As soon as one of the robots moves, Heim screams in terror and leaps into Kataru's arms. He explains that it's just a cleaning robot that sweeps and vacuums. Heim cautiously pokes the other one. She then asks what they eat. Kataru explains they run on electricity. Heim watches the robots intently, musing that there are other creatures besides humans. Kataru jokes if this is her first time seeing a Tengu, referring to the robots. She explains that to her, they're like babies who have never even seen a human before, let alone a Tengu. Her fear turns into affection as she endearingly calls them babies. Seeing that the robots don't know anything, Heim gets a determined look and decides she will teach them. Kataru playfully suggests that since she knows more than them, she can be their senpai. Heim happily accepts her new role and formally introduces herself. With that settled, Kataru suggests they put the robots to work. As Kataru finishes setting up the robots, he mentions he'll also download the app on a tablet. Heim watches him, noting he seems to be having fun. She asks if he likes machines. She points out all the gadgets he has for work and the new ones that arrive weekly. Kataru is taken aback and insists he's just a normal guy. Heim playfully calls him out, observing that he ignores letters but immediately opens packages containing machines. Cornered, Kataru finally admits he likes home appliances. Heim smiles, remarking that while all machines look the same to her, he sees them all differently. She teases that he should have just said so from the start. She then decides the robots need names, christening them Lil Sweepy and Lil Cleany. With Sweepy and Cleany on the job, Heim wonders what she should do, having already finished her other chores. Seeing her at a loss, Kataru rummages around. He pulls out a tablet, telling her he's been meaning to give it to her. Kataru explains that she can use the tablet to buy whatever clothes she likes. She is amazed that she can order clothes with just the tablet. He reminds her that she wanted to try on lots of modern clothes. Since he can't take her to the shops, he explains that with the tablet, he can buy her anything she wants. Heim protests that she's used to the cold. She feels it's too much for him to buy her whatever she wants. Kataru reassures her, reminding her that trying modern clothes was one of her goals. She protests that she has no money. He bursts out laughing, joking that it's her food expenses that are actually a problem. After apologizing for his joke, Kataru tells her not to worry about the money. As the tablet lights up, he promises to teach her how to use it. Heim's eyes sparkle with excitement at the thought of having her own Western clothes. Just as Heim is getting excited, Kataru realizes a potential problem. He asks if she can actually wear Western clothes with her wings. Unfazed, Heim demonstrates that she can use her divine power to make her wings smaller. She explains that while some Tengu can make them disappear completely, this is the best she can do. Heim then proudly shows Kataru modifications she made to her own clothes, revealing she's good at sewing. Kataru looks doubtful and she calls him out on it, explaining she also shortened her hakama. He admits his surprise, thinking she wouldn't be good at such things. Heim explains she practiced so she wouldn't have any trouble when the time came to wear whatever she liked. She confesses that she kept thinking to herself that maybe, one day, she would get to wear them. Touched by her confession, Kataru tells her that her practice has finally paid off. Flustered but happy, Heim looks at him. He confirms his sentiment with a firm yup. Kataru begins to show Heim how to use the shopping app, explaining how to tap on items to see details. He explains how to use the heart icon to save things she likes without buying them. Heim tries to follow along, mispronouncing ladies as radies. This makes Kataru realize he's accidentally on the wrong section. He asks what kind of clothes she's interested in. Without hesitation, Heim declares she wants shoes. When Kataru asks if she means sneakers like his, she confirms, saying she wants the kind he usually wears. He seems surprised, commenting that his sneakers aren't particularly cute. Heim enthusiastically adds that she also wants to try long-sleeved clothes like the ones Kataru is wearing. And pants too. She fondly recalls seeing people climbing MT Takao in similar outfits, noting that they don't have clothes like that in her village. Kataru listens, realizing this is how she perceives the outside world. Kataru then asks if she'd like to try short skirts too, and Heim eagerly agrees. He pulls up the page for women's skirts on the tablet for her. Overjoyed and blushing, Heim looks at the screen, her eyes wide with wonder. She whispers how happy she is. While Kataru works at his desk, Heim is completely absorbed in the tablet. She happily swipes through the clothing options. She dreams of wearing her new sneakers, a look of pure contentment on her face. Heim continues her excited shopping spree, kicking her feet in delight. She swipes through endless options on the tablet. She's completely captivated, her initial confusion replaced by sheer joy and anticipation. Sometime later, Kataru finds Heim has fallen fast asleep. He gently places a blanket over her. His eyes fall upon the screen, which is displaying a page of women's lingerie. Kataru is completely stunned by the unexpected discovery. He carefully takes the tablet from the sleeping Heim. Sitting down some distance away, he's left speechless, wondering what he should do now. Kataru sits down with his friends Satoshi and Marisa, explaining that due to recent circumstances, he and Heim have started living together. After a moment of silence from the surprised couple, Kataru looks down. He then tells them he needs to ask for their help. In a flashback, Heim is seen diligently modifying a new sweatshirt. She carefully cuts holes for her wings. She excitedly presents her creation to Kataru. She beams with happiness, proud of her work. Kataru watches her with a look of fond surprise. Heim is ecstatic as she tries on her new Western clothes, exclaiming that she's finally wearing pants. She admires her new outfit, loving the long sleeves and how well the warm, firm sneakers fit. She marvels at what Western clothes are like. She exclaims that she feels even cuter now, to which Kataru agrees, telling her he's glad she's happy and that the outfit suits her perfectly. Heim is thrilled with how easy the clothes are to move in, feeling like she could outrun anyone in her village. Kataru internally remarks on how good she is at sewing. She's happy to be wearing the same kind of clothes as everyone else. Looking at her reflection, she's so happy. A sudden realization hits her. She excitedly asks Kataru if this means she can go outside now that she looks like an ordinary girl. Heim's excitement fades when she remembers her wings. She quickly dismisses her own suggestion to go outside. She chides herself for being silly and forgetting about her wings, which are still visible. Seeing her disappointment, Kataru presents her with a gift. Heim asks what it is. Kataru confirms it's a little something for her and tells her to see for herself. The present is a backpack. Kataru explains he made 2 holes in it for her. He explains that if she shrinks her wings, they might fit inside. Heim's eyes widen as she realizes the implication. With her wings hidden, she can finally go outside without anyone knowing she's a Tengu. Kataru encourages her to try the backpack on right away. Thrilled by the possibility, Heim eagerly asks if she can really go outside. She thinks it might be a little too cramped. She fits her wings inside the backpack. Kataru admits it looks a bit tight but reassures her that with this, no one will ever know. Heim looks at her reflection, feeling a bit uneasy. She asks Kataru how he got a backpack like this since they aren't sold in stores. He sheepishly admits he's not as skilled at sewing as she is and apologizes for possibly getting blood on it. He shows her his bandaged fingers. Heim is left speechless by his thoughtful, albeit clumsy, gesture. Heim is confused, asking why he would do all this. She points out that he is absolutely against her going outside and revealing she's a Tengu. He explains he's doing this so she can go out without anyone knowing her secret. Kataru explains that it would be a waste not to wear the new clothes they bought and that he knows she wanted to go outside. Heim is touched by his words. He sincerely apologizes for always denying her requests simply because she's a Tengu. Heim, touched, says it's okay and that she now has the backpack. She appreciates the great lengths he went to for her. Kataru then reveals another surprise, telling her there are some people he wants her to meet. Heim is surprised and asks who he wants her to meet. At Hachioji station, Heim is completely overwhelmed by the bustling city, shouting with excitement, much to Kataru's slight embarrassment. Heim continues to be amazed by the high ceilings and crowds, thinking it's a festival. Kataru tries to quiet her down. Heim asks where they are going, wondering if they'll take a train. Kataru says they are meeting someone and then spots them. Marisa and Satoshi appear, apologizing for being a bit late. Satoshi jokes about them coming all the way out to the middle of nowhere, and Kataru retorts that it's a direct ride on the Chuo line. Satoshi is shocked that Kataru actually brought a girl, while Marisa introduces herself and Satoshi to Heim. Heim is stunned by Marisa's appearance, thinking she looks and smells like a glittering princess. Heim is flustered when Marisa returns the compliment, saying Heim is the real princess. Kataru whispers to Heim that Marisa and Satoshi already know she's a Tengu. Heim is confused about how they know she's a princess, and Kataru explains he told them. He adds that he thinks it's okay if they know. Heim processes this new information. Marisa cheerfully invites her to go shopping. The group wanders through the mall, with Heim taking in all the sights with childlike wonder. She eagerly asks Marisa if they can go into the shops and look at clothes. Marisa mysteriously tells her that's not part of their plan for the day. Marisa leads Heim to a lingerie store, announcing this is what they're here to buy today. She suggests they choose a set together. Heim is completely stunned. Heim confides in Marisa, explaining her situation. She admits that she hasn't told Kataru about her interest in lingerie. Heim shyly asks how Marisa knew she wanted to buy cute underwear. Marisa smiles knowingly, saying it's a secret. Marisa empathizes with Heim, saying that cute underwear makes you want to wear it. She adds that she felt the same when she was younger. She concludes that humans and Tengu aren't so different after all. Heim happily agrees. Marisa explains how to measure for a bra. She realizes that because of Heim's wings, she'll have to measure herself at home. To solve this, Marisa declares they'll just buy every size available, announcing that the loaded Kataru will foot the bill, catching him completely off guard. Heim looks at her own chest, a bit self-conscious. Marisa encourages Heim to pick any bra she likes from the area. Heim shyly points out a cute set with a ribbon. Marisa enthusiastically suggests getting the matching panties as well, and Heim agrees. While the girls are shopping, Satoshi admits to Kataru that, frankly, he didn't believe him at first. He says he guesses what Kataru said was true. Kataru says he didn't expect them to believe him right away. Satoshi clarifies that there's no reason for Kataru to lie about something like that. He then says what actually surprised him wasn't the fact that Heim is a Tengu. Satoshi explains that he was surprised that Kataru, of his own volition, decided to live with someone. He feels relieved knowing this. Kataru asks why he's so worried about him, and Satoshi replies that Heim is cute and a good girl. Somehow he feels more cheerful just by looking at her. He then presses Kataru about their relationship status, wondering how long this arrangement will last. Satoshi says he understands wanting Heim to be happy. He points out that since they aren't a couple, he thinks this situation isn't a good idea. Kataru quietly agrees that he knows. Kataru explains that's why, when she finds a guy she likes or has another reason to leave, he will let her go. Their conversation is interrupted by a happy Heim calling out that she's almost finished. Kataru confirms to Satoshi that he wasn't lying. He truly feels relieved knowing he and Heim are living together. Marisa tells Heim to try on every bra and see which is most comfortable, as that will be her size. She promises they can come back later to buy the right size. Marisa decides the boys have waited long enough and they should go. Heim asks if they'll really come back again. Heim is ecstatic, asking if Marisa is really willing to go shopping with her again. In the background, Satoshi asks if he can take the Kuyut Heim home, earning a glare from Kataru. Marisa smiles and says they should come back together. The four of them happily share a meal, cementing their newfound friendship. After saying goodbye to their friends at the station, Kataru decides they can take the bus back. Marisa is still waving as they leave. On the way home, Kataru asks Heim if she had fun. She exclaims that it was super fun. She excitedly tells him about the cute one-piece outfit Marisa chose for her. Heim adds that Marisa is willing to go shopping with her again later. Kataru seems surprised by her uncertainty. Heim confides in Kataru that she was wondering if Marisa would be willing to be friends with her. Marisa grabs Heim's shopping bag, asking what she's talking about. Kataru tells Heim that Marisa already considers her a friend. Heim asks if she can add Satoshi to her list of friends too. She wonders aloud if she can really become friends with Satoshi. As they walk, Heim is captivated by the Christmas lights, exclaiming how pretty they are. Kataru explains it's almost Christmas. He tells her the lights are powered by electricity, which amazes her. Heim wonders about all the colors. He suggests they stop and enjoy the lights for a bit. Marisa remarks on how different Hachioji is now. Kataru agrees, recalling that the station used to be a department store when he was young, and now it's full of trendy shops. Heim adds that there were no elevated walkways back then. Heim looks around at the city and the people, her eyes shining. She turns to Kataru and sincerely thanks him for the day. She thinks about the day's experiences, shopping, eating delicious food with everyone and making new human friends. It all felt like a dream. Heim asks Kataru if she looks like a normal girl right now. She beams, asking if it means she's not a Tengu today. Her innocent question sends a flustered Kataru into a panic, who insists she's misunderstood. He tells her that while she does look like a normal girl, his reason for helping her wasn't to make her become one. He just wanted her to be able to go outside whenever she likes, to wear and buy whatever she wants. He apologizes for making her feel like she had to deny being a Tengu and says there's no need for her to try not to be herself. Kataru looks at Heim and tells her that she is plenty cute just being herself. His sincere words leave her blushing and at a loss for words. Heim quietly murmurs that she's plenty cute. Suddenly, Kataru asks for her hand. He notices she has applied a peel-off nail polish that shines. He is shocked by the sight. As Kataru panics, Heim tells him there's something she'd like to say too. Heim calmly explains that she loves her Tengu friends and family. She also loves her Tengu self and treasures all of it. But then, holding his hand, she confesses that she loves and treasures him even more than all of that. She asks him not to hurt himself for her sake anymore. A stunned Kataru looks at Heim. Heim smiles softly. She leans in and plants a kiss on his cheek. Kataru is completely flustered and speechless. Heim beams and tells a blushing Kataru that she loves him. In the background, the others continue their own light-hearted banter, with Marisa offering to teach Satoshi how to sew, to which he declares he's not going to try it anymore. The scene shifts to a memory of a young Kataru, alone in a dark space, staring down at a compass. The compass needle just spins wildly. A young Kataru desperately shakes a compass. No matter how many times he shakes it, the needle won't point north. He wonders why it's broken. He stares at the broken instrument, sadly calling out for his grandmother. Kataru jolts awake on his couch. The memory of his childhood is still fresh. His friend Satoshi's recent words about his relationship with Heim echo in his mind, leaving him deep in thought. Back at home, Heim excitedly examines the new bras from her shopping trip. She picks one out, staring at it intently. She hugs it close, delighted by how cute it is. Without a second thought, she takes off her sweatshirt to try it on. Heim admires her reflection, thrilled with her new purchase. She wonders aloud if it's the right size. Deciding it's perfect, she impulsively decides to show Kataru. His instincts immediately warn him of her plan, and he rushes to block the door. A struggle ensues as Heim tries to pull the door open, insisting he look at her cute new bra, while a flustered Kataru begs her not to come out wearing only that. After the ordeal, Kataru makes a firm decision. From now on, Heim will be doing all of her own laundry. Kataru muses that there was never any reason for him to leave his hometown of Hachioji. He was born and raised there. His parents were also born and raised in Hachioji, and it's where they met. Even as an adult, he chose to live alone in Hachioji, with everything he needed just a train ride or bike ride away. He lives at the Blue Co-op Hachioji. His fortress-like peace is interrupted by the persistent ringing of his doorbell, and he mutters that he told them to ring only once. He swings the door open to find Heim and his friend, Sadyami, standing on his doorstep, much to his surprise. Heim stares at him, her eyes wide with a sparkling curiosity. Kataru maintains a stoic expression as his visitors enter. Heim's awe quickly vanishes when she sees the messy state of his apartment, exclaiming how dirty it is. Sadyami immediately scolds Kataru for not answering his phone, while Heim greets him with a cheerful hello. Kataru stares back, calling the visit inconvenient and troublesome. Heim points out that since they have similar jobs, he must have free time. Sadyami says he'll explain on the way and asks Kataru to come out, noting he hasn't been outside. Sadyami then turns to the unfamiliar girl with Kataru and asks who she is. The girl beams and introduces herself as Heim. Sadyami is momentarily speechless. Kataru blushes, flustered by the situation. Sadyami explains that he wants Kataru to guide them around Hachioji. He adds that since he just moved back, he's unfamiliar with the city now and is counting on Kataru's knowledge. Kataru is hesitant, remaining silent. Kataru claims he isn't truly knowledgeable, but Sadyami counters that his lack of knowledge of other cities means he knows Hachioji well. Kataru admits Hachioji is large, and there are many places he's never been, but Sadyami says just the area around the station will be fine. Heim is excited, asking if he's really lived in Hachioji his whole life. Heim looks at Sadyami curiously. Kataru blushes at her comment. Heim cheerfully declares that she and Sadyami are the same, causing Kataru to nod awkwardly. Sadyami is left confused, asking who she is. Heim tries to explain that she's from MT Tako, but Kataru quickly covers her mouth to stop her. He quickly pulls her away from Sadyami. Kataru leans in and whispers to Sadyami, confident that his friend will believe him. He begins to explain who Heim is. He reveals that she is actually a Tengu from Tako. He explains that after some events, she's now living with him and is curious about Hachioji, which is why he asked for the tour. Sadyami's face clearly shows his disbelief, while Kataru begs him to believe his seemingly nonsensical story. Sadyami looks at him, utterly baffled, and asks what on earth he's talking about. Sadyami asks why her being a Tengu matters, and if Kataru is discriminating against people. Kataru is taken aback, stammering that he couldn't care less about that. Sadyami looks from Kataru to Heim, thoughtfully saying she seems like a wonderful person. He agrees to guide them, thinking to himself that it's a good thing Kataru is a weird guy. Sadyami leads them to a bustling manju shop. He asks if they've eaten at Miyako Manju before, but they both seem unfamiliar with the name. Kataru explains he only lived in the area until he was 8, much to Sadyami's disbelief. Sadyami says it's a no then. He takes a deep breath, preparing to educate his friend. Sadyami suddenly bursts into song, much to Kataru's surprise and Heim's confusion. He continues singing the local folk song with gusto. Kataru, utterly embarrassed, asks what he's doing. Sadyami asks if he doesn't want to say something in response. He explains that it's unthinkable for someone from Hachioji not to know the dance of the sun, while Heim finds the whole situation interesting. The three of them peer into the shop window at the manju. Sadyami proudly presents the large box of hot manju they bought. Sadyami excitedly offers the freshly made treats to Heim, suggesting they each try one. Kataru quickly grabs one, protesting that he wasn't just thinking about eating. Sadyami looks on, amused by Kataru's eagerness. The group starts to eat the manju together. Sadyami is happy that Heim enjoys the white bean paste. Heim is delighted, exclaiming that the sweetness is just right and it's so fluffy. Kataru tries one and considers having another. Suddenly, Sadyami stops him, telling him to wait a second. Kataru has a sudden realization, excitedly shouting that he knows this taste and has eaten it before. Kataru remembers that this manju was always in his kitchen when he was a child. He recalls eating tons of them and feels a wave of nostalgia. He happily explains that tasting it again brought back the memories. Heim smiles, observing that it seems to be a taste of memory for everyone. Sadyami comically scolds Kataru for eating a whole row of the treats. Sadyami struggles with the heavy bag of treats. Energized, Heim asks where they're going next, and Sadyami replies that they can easily finish all the manju. Kataru blushes, feeling a bit overwhelmed by her enthusiasm. Sadyami suggests they head back to the station, but Heim notices he's eaten all the remaining manju. Heim turns around to find Sadyami gone. She points out that he's disappeared and calls his name. Sadyami leads them down a set of stairs into a bookstore. Heim wonders what the place is, and Kataru identifies it as a bookshop. Kataru asks what's so special about this particular Kumazawa bookstore, and Sadyami tells him to look closely. Heim excitedly exclaims that she's never been to a bookshop before, while Kataru wonders if it's special because the entire building is filled with them. Heim enthusiastically heads inside. Kataru thinks to himself that he thought this was supposed to be an eating tour. Heim turns back with a bright smile, exclaiming that they can buy lots of books since Kataru likes them. Sadyami watches them, looking a bit stunned. Heim tries to pull Kataru along, saying that the books Sadyami likes are a bit. Heim looks back, confused by Kataru's hesitation. Sadyami offers his hand to Heim as they go up the stairs. He explains that it would be a problem if she fell, so he's offering his hand. Heim looks up at Sadyami, surprised by his gesture. Kataru tells Sadyami to stop being so cheesy. Heim blushes, thinking that it feels like she's a princess. She thanks Sadyami, who tells her to watch her step. Kataru looks on gloomily. The bookstore is filled with shelves of manga. Heim marvels at the illustrations, and Sadyami explains that the whole underground floor sells only comics and related items. Sadyami asks Heim if she knows what manga is. She proudly answers that she knows it's a book with lots of illustrations, and Sadyami clarifies that comic means the same thing. Sadyami explains that he lends Kataru many of his comics. Heim turns to Sadyami and asks if he likes manga too. Sadyami turns to Heim and explains that he also reads regular books. He explains that while he lives in Hachioji, he grew up in a mountainous area with no entertainment. Sometimes his parents would bring him into the city, and buying books here was what he looked forward to most. He loved the secretive, non-mainstream atmosphere of the underground shop, which he still finds cool. He concludes that both manga and this shop make him feel like he's in a different world, and he really likes it. Heim smiles warmly at Sadyami. Sadyami apologizes for rambling, but Heim giggles. She tells him it's not that, but she thinks he and Kataru are very similar. She explains that when Kataru reads a book, his eyes look a lot like Sadyami's. She recalls how Kataru looks at books as if devouring them, completely tuned out to the world around him. Heim tells Sadyami she now understands why he and Kataru are friends. She smiles brightly, saying it's wonderful to have something you love. Sadyami is left speechless for a moment. Heim is thrilled when Sadyami offers to pick some recommendations for her. Meanwhile, Kataru overhears something that shocks him. This is Kumazawa Bookshop's main store, and it's in Hachioji. As it gets dark, Sadyami looks at his friends. He suggests they get some ramen before heading back. Kataru agrees, and Heim excitedly exclaims, "Ramen." Heim confirms she knows what ramen is and loves it, which surprises Kataru. Heim enthusiastically explains that ramen is amazing because it's dry but turns delicious with hot water, like magic. She eats it every 3 days, leaving Kataru and Sadyami speechless. Sadyami defensively tells Kataru not to get the wrong idea, insisting Heim eats properly. He believes Heim will be very surprised by real ramen. The group walks through the Celio shopping center. Sadyami tells the other two to go on ahead, saying he'll catch up. Heim wonders if he's going to the washroom, comparing it to needing the toilet after visiting a bookshop. The three arrive at the Binbin ramen shop. They select their orders from a vending machine. They take their seats at the counter. Kataru, thinking Heim is looking at the cup ramen, tells her it's okay that she likes it so much, noting it's not the usual bowl. Heim just smiles back at him. Sadyami returns and offers Heim a handkerchief for her clothes. Heim and Kataru are surprised by the gesture. Heim accepts the handkerchief, touched by Sadyami's kindness. An older woman remarks to her husband that he should be so considerate, while Kataru sighs, thinking it's just a ramen shop. Their food arrives, 3 orders of ramen and a plate of gyoza. Heim and Kataru marvel at the bowl of Hachioji ramen. She asks if this kind of ramen is sold in convenience stores, and Sadyami explains its popularity exploded a few years ago. She takes her first slurp. Her eyes widen in shock at the taste. She exclaims that this is real ramen, so different from what she's used to. Kataru remarks that this is the typical reaction from someone who's only had cup ramen. Heim praises the sweetness from the vegetables and the crunchy texture of the onions, noting she didn't expect it to be spicy. Kataru agrees that the combination of shoyu ramen and onions is surprisingly good. Heim blows on her noodles before taking another bite. Sadyami watches her, looking thoughtful. She jolts Kataru by exclaiming how delicious the ramen is. She thanks Sadyami for bringing her and declares she loves it. Kataru is taken aback by her intense reaction. Heim excitedly says she wants to eat there every day, prompting Kataru to comment on her love for ramen. Leaving the restaurant, Heim exclaims how good the meal was. Sadyami suggests a Hachioji ramen tour for next time, and Heim enthusiastically agrees. Sadyami notices Heim has stopped and calls her name. She turns to him with a bright smile and calls out his name, Sadyami. Sadyami looks at Heim with a gentle expression. He thanks her for the day. Heim replies that she should be the one thanking him. She explains that even though she's lived in Hachioji her whole life, she didn't know anything about it and is glad to have learned more. Heim beams, thanking Sadyami again for a wonderful day. Sadyami tells her that's not it, much to Kataru's confusion. Kataru looks on, puzzled. Sadyami suddenly presents a bouquet of roses. Heim is stunned as rose petals flutter around her. Sadyami explains that he's truly grateful to have met her. He sincerely thanks her and tells her the flowers represent his feelings, hoping she'll accept them. Kataru is stunned, wondering if Sadyami is confessing. Kataru is speechless, stammering his friend's name. Heim gazes at the beautiful bouquet in her hands. She thanks him, admitting she's never received something so lovely before. Kataru is flustered by the sudden turn of events. Heim smells the roses and tells Sadyami she's glad she likes them. She suddenly panics, realizing she's only been receiving things all day and should be the one giving thanks. She wonders what she can give him, but Sadyami tells her there's no need, because he wanted to give them to her. Heim looks down at the bouquet with a thoughtful expression. She plucks a single rose from the bouquet, saying it might not be a thank you item, but she offers the single rose to Sadyami. She brightly tells him it's a memento of their day's memories. Heim smiles and says she wants him to have it too, because the day was so fun. Sadyami takes the rose and looks at Heim. He asks if she knows the meaning behind giving one rose back to him. Heim cheerfully admits she doesn't know if there's a meaning, and Sadyami tells her it's okay. She turns to Kataru, excitedly showing him the bouquet. She exclaims that it's a bouquet of roses and her first time seeing such beautiful ones. Kataru looks stunned. As it's getting dark, Sadyami tells them to be careful on their way home. Heim thanks them again for the day and the flowers. Kataru wonders when they'll be able to meet again. Heim waves goodbye as she walks away. She turns with a happy expression on her face. Suddenly, Kataru grabs her hand. He leads her away, holding her hand. Heim looks up at him and asks his name. She asks what's the matter, but he can only stammer that it's nothing. Kataru holds Heim's hand tightly. He thinks that Heim and Sadyami getting along should be a good thing, yet he feels restless. Kataru recalls his grandmother telling him about her many siblings and how only one remained. Today was the day they mourned for that last person. The adults' hushed whispers about the deceased's long suffering filled the air. Overwhelmed, a young Kataru threw his book to the ground in a fit of anger. For some reason, he hated everything about this. He desperately wanted his grandmother's attention, hoping she would turn back into the grandma he knew. A voice asks why he was talking to a dead person, telling him not to think about them anymore. He believed that after this, she would always be with him. At the orphanage, whispers followed him. The other children pitied the new kid, whose grandmother died right after bringing him there, leaving him with no family. A teacher, Ms. Yamaki, made it clear the teachers were not his parents, and the other children were not his siblings. One teacher assured him they'd always be there, while another clarified it was only until he was 18. New faces like Yoshikawa-sensei appeared, promising to do their best to support him. Through this constant change, Kataru was made to realize a harsh truth. He came to believe he was born into a world where he would always be left behind by those he trusted, a cycle that would repeat until he died. To protect himself, he decided he didn't need anyone. But lately, with Heim, it had been so fun that he'd completely forgotten about that painful resolve. Kataru reflects on how people who care about him sometimes appear in his life and how he gets his hopes up on his own. He tells himself he doesn't have the right to be anxious. His dark thoughts are interrupted when Heim calls his name, announcing she's finished with the flowers. She cheerfully suggests they have lunch. Heim gets to work in the kitchen, preparing ingredients. She grates fresh yuzu while the fox spirit watches on. She enthusiastically squeezes something from a bag. The zest is then added to a dark sauce in a bowl. With the rice ready, Heim begins to form onigiri. She makes one of them comically huge. She proudly presents her creations to Kataru. She giggles happily at her work. Kataru spreads the yuzu miso sauce on the onigiri. He pops them into the toaster to cook. As it dings, Heim marvels at the finished grilled onigiri. Kataru tells her to go ahead and eat, and she thanks him excitedly before taking a bite. They both enjoy the meal, and Kataru exclaims how good it is. He mentions he's had grilled onigiri with miso before, but never with yuzu. Heim explains the yuzu was a gift from their neighbor. Pointing to another box, she asks what the other thing was called and suggests they make it next. Heim excitedly asks if they're making jam to put on bread, suggesting it for tomorrow's breakfast. Kataru agrees with a soft sigh. Just then the doorbell rings, startling both of them. As Kataru goes to the door, Heim wonders about the unfamiliar sound of a doorbell. To her surprise, it's Marisa and Satoshi. Marisa apologizes for the sudden visit, explaining they have something to tell them. Heim seems to have an idea of what it might be. Marisa announces that she and Satoshi are getting married. While Heim is completely shocked, Kataru seems to have been expecting it. Marisa explains they wanted to tell Kataru first. Marisa then teases Heim about giving Satoshi advice, leaving her flustered. The happy couple bows, asking for their continued care. Heim recovers from her shock and warmly congratulates her friends. Marisa and Satoshi then ask Kataru if he'd like to attend their wedding ceremony. Of course, they extend the invitation to Heim as well. Heim is surprised to be included. Marisa assures her they would be glad to have her. The thought of attending her first wedding sends Heim into a flustered state. She wonders what kind of clothes she should wear. Kataru teases that Marisa waited a long time. Marisa retorts that Satoshi was the one who wouldn't propose. Satoshi laughs it off, saying they were always together anyway. Curious, Heim asks what people do after getting married. Marisa begins to explain, saying their traditions probably aren't so different from the Tengu's. Marisa simply states that when people marry, they become a family. The word hangs in the air, and Kataru quietly repeats it. The concept of home stirs something deep within him. The couple talks about their plans, like buying new furniture. Marisa asks if Kataru and Heim will go shopping with them, and Heim is super willing. Satoshi agrees they'll need to split the chores, and Heim eagerly offers to help with cleaning. Marisa adds they can go on trips together, leaving Heim speechless with excitement. Marisa jokes about them being placed in the same coffin, but Kataru tells her to stop. Heim thoughtfully observes that this means they'll be together even in the same graveyard, though it won't happen for a long time. She then realizes that becoming a family means being together always, even at bedtime. Heim happily concludes they'll always be together, even when they're old. Kataru suddenly snaps that it's not going to happen. Everyone is stunned into silence by his sharp comment. He quickly apologizes, flustered by his outburst, as his friends look on with concern. Satoshi tries to reason with him, saying it's impossible to always be together. He mentions the possibility of accidents or illness. He explains that all he can do is everything in his power to be with Marisa every day. He asks if that's not enough, but Kataru remains silent. Heim watches Kataru with concern. He struggles for words. He stands up abruptly, declaring that he can't do that. He walks out of the room, leaving a worried Heim calling his name. He admits he doesn't know how to believe. Looking at the photos of his lost family, he's flooded with memories. He's convinced that everything good always ends. Marisa apologizes to Heim, who is more worried about Kataru. Marisa urges Satoshi to understand Kataru's feelings, but he dismisses it as childish. Satoshi explains that after years of friendship, he believes it's Kataru who is unwilling to understand him, not the other way around. Satoshi admits that in the end, he and Marisa are not enough for Kataru. He clarifies that they aren't on bad terms, but it feels like they're not a good fit for him. They make a heartfelt request to Heim, asking her to always be with Kataru, because they don't want to see him alone anymore. With a gentle smile, Heim approaches Kataru. She approaches him as he sits alone, quietly placing a cup of tea on the table before him. Kataru plugs in a small heater. Heim asks what it is. He tells her it's starting to snow. She says it might get cold. Heim slides open the door, amazed by the sight. Recalling Marisa's prediction, she marvels that it's true and that the snow is piling up. She rushes out into the snow, declaring the cold is nothing to her. Heim beckons Kataru to join her. She uses her powers to create a warm space for him. He follows her out into the yard. He watches as she crouches down, beginning to build something in the snow. Heim sits quietly in the falling snow, holding a warm cup. Kataru stands beside her. He looks out at the snowy landscape, lost in thought. Heim asks Kataru whether he likes summer or winter. He replies that he prefers summer. Heim agrees that summer is nice for playing. She adds that winter has its limits, though, as you have to wait for the snow to melt. She adds that snowball fights in winter are fun too. Kataru admits that winter feels lonely. Heim holds up her little snowman, saying she loves winter just as much as summer. She acknowledges the hardships, the cold, the lack of fresh vegetables, and people getting sick. She adds that the quiet can make you feel alone and sad. Heim gently takes Kataru's hand, holding the small snowman in her other, and looks at him with a reassuring smile. She tells him it's okay. She tells him it's okay because he's not alone. She explains that once winter ends, spring will come, followed by summer and autumn. When winter comes again, it won't be so scary anymore. Kataru watches the snowman begin to melt in his hand. Despite her words, a single thought remains, but... He looks at Heim and finally voices his deepest fear, telling her that eventually, even she will be gone one day. He confesses that to avoid the pain, he has to pretend no one is important to him, because he knows they'll eventually be gone. He admits he can't bear the pain of parting with important people anymore. Heim looks at Kataru with deep empathy as he expresses his pain. She pulls him into a tight embrace, holding him close in the falling snow. "I'm not going to disappear," she whispers, a firm promise against his ear. Heim gently touches his face, her eyes full of conviction. "It's okay," she says softly. She vows, "I will always be by your side, Kataru." Heim recalls seeing him as a heartbroken child, knowing he was going through a hard time. She apologizes for not being by his side back then. But this time she promises he's not alone anymore. Heim thanks Kataru for thinking of her as someone important. Overwhelmed by her understanding and her promise, Kataru can't hold back his tears. They hold each other in the quiet, snowy garden, a silent promise of a shared future passing between them. Back inside, Kataru finally explains his childhood feelings, admitting he hated his grandpa. He explains that after his parents died, his grandma was his whole world and he was hers. But when she would read his grandpa's book to him, he saw an expression in her eyes he'd never seen before. Even as a child, he understood. She wasn't just looking at the book, she was looking at the memory of his grandpa. He was scared his grandpa would take her away from him. It's a fear he has carried ever since. He realizes now that she must have been lonely too. Heim reflects that his grandmother lived a long life and must have lost many dear people. She says that life is full of separation if you live long enough. She reassures Kataru that his grandma treasured him more than anyone and wanted to always be with him. It must have been painful for her to leave him behind. After Heim hugs him, Kataru makes a suggestion. He suggests they visit his grandmother's grave when the weather warms up and that he wants to visit her family's graves too. Heim is overjoyed, excitedly planning to introduce him to her parents as the person important to her. She reminds him of his promise. Kataru stares at Heim for a long moment. She wonders what he's thinking. Then he pulls her into a hug, simply agreeing sure. Leaning in close, Kataru whispers that he'll tell her parents she's important to him too. Overcome with emotion, Heim trembles in his arms. "I won't leave you alone," he promises, holding her tightly. Outside, two small snowmen sit side by side, a testament to their new beginning.